Hello everyone, and welcome to Module 0 of CHY 114. And so since we are at least beginning our semester remotely, we will be recording these videos for you to participate in lab as well as we can with this current situation. And so just as a side note related to that, you may notice that I am not wearing a mask right now. It's pretty unusual to see somebody not wearing a mask these days. But note that I am all alone in this big giant laboratory, and so there's no one else in here, so I'm not violating any safety protocols or violating or putting my own safety or other people's safety in danger, because there is no one else in here. And so Module 0, the whole idea behind this first lab in CHY 114 is to just introduce you to some of the different tools and different ways that we measure things in a chemistry lab. And so to just show you some of the different tools that we do use, things that you're maybe familiar with or you maybe have seen. We use things like beakers, graduated cylinders. We have Erlenmeyer flasks. Now, all three of those items, a beaker, graduated cylinder, and Erlenmeyer flask, are all used to measure, store, and transport liquids. One of the things that we look at today is looking at which device is proper for which item, or for which device is proper for which procedure. And so is a beaker or a graduated cylinder, for instance, better for accurately measuring liquids, accurately measuring the volume? And we'll take a look at that. We quite often use funnels. Again, just sort of a basic intro to some of the tools that we use. Squirt bottles filled with water are a handy item from time to time. We also use analytical balances to find the masses, or a balance to find the mass of items. And so this is what a typical balance would look like. So you can see it here, a lid. If the item that we're taking the mass of is small enough, then we're able to close the lid right over it. It gives us more accurate measurements, because many balances are sensitive enough that even airflow moving over it can affect the measurement. So we always want to try to close our lid whenever we can. The balances have adjustable feet on their bases so that we can always make sure that they're level as well. And so let's just sort of look at the way that we do some of these measurements, or the way that we measure some things in a science lab. Let's first take a look at something that happens within a graduated cylinder. And so this doesn't necessarily happen as much in a beaker, just because the width of a beaker is so much greater. You can see a picture of this as well on page 4 in your manual, but I just want to give you an idea in real time, so to speak. And so we can see that graduated cylinder, or see the liquid in the graduated cylinder, and we see that curve. And so whenever we're measuring the volume in a graduated cylinder, again, we have that curve due to some of the properties of water that cause the water to climb up the sides of the cylinder a little bit. That curve is called the meniscus. And we always measure at the bottom of the meniscus. So that's just something to keep in mind with measurements using graduated cylinders, volume measurements, is that we measure at the bottom of that curve. Let's also take a look at just a couple ways that we use a balance when we are measuring the mass of things. And so one of the things that we always do with a balance, we turn it on first, of course. This balance is on. Let's say that I want to find the mass of my pen. So I'm going to open the lid. I'm going to what we call zero the balance. And most balances have a button that literally says 0 on them. Maybe they might say tare, T-A-R-E. And so we then zero the balance, tells the balance that there's nothing on it right now. The mass should be absolutely 0. So it zeroes it out. And so then I literally can just place my pen down on the balance, wait for it to stabilize, and I see that my pen weighs 10.412 grams. And so that's something easy enough. This is something that just rests right on the plate of the balance. I'm able to pick it back up afterwards and use it regularly. We're going to be finding the mass of some of these unknown cylinders in a little bit. And again, I can literally just place it right on there and find the mass. Let's say that we're finding the mass of some sort of powder or crystalline solid. Picture table salt. A lot of chemicals that we have in a chem lab have the structure and the form of common table salt or sugar, something like that. If I'm trying to find the exact amount of some sort of chemical like that, I can't simply dump that onto the balance and then pick it back up again and use it. So for something like that, we use something called whey paper. Whey paper, like this, just sort of this waxy paper. The way that you would go about using whey paper on a balance, one of the easiest ways I've found anyway, is fold it first. Put a crease in there. You'll see why in just a moment. But we put a crease on it and then open it back up a little bit. And then we would place that whey paper onto the balance, and you'll see that the mass changes. I get 0.225 grams. I can do a couple things at this point. I can either record that mass and then take the difference in order to find the mass of the solid that I would eventually weigh. Or, and this is really handy, a really handy way to use balances, with that whey paper on there, I can simply press the 0 button, and that tells the balance that whatever is on there right now, I want to say has a mass of 0. So now my balance has the whey paper on there, but it's recording a mass of 0. And so now I can simply, if I want, say, 0.55 grams of something, I scoop my solid onto there, I scoop, maybe my table salt or whatever it is, scoop that onto there until I get to 0.55 grams. Now I'm ready to take this and put it into whatever receptacle, whatever I'm going to run my reaction in maybe. Now, since I have this paper creased, it's a lot easier to pick up. I can sort of pick it up like this, and we would have something in here. If this were real, I'd be doing this very carefully so I don't spill any. But then I would pick it up, I would have whatever I'm going to run my reaction in, maybe a beaker right next to me, and then you just dump it right in. And so that's how we would use a balance like this in order to find the mass of some solids. And that really takes us to the end of just sort of this beginning part of Module 0, just sort of introducing you and showing you some of the common tools that we use in a chemistry lab.